I will load very slowly. Old Gen Xbox, lovely stuff. Feeling a tad rough, so we move. Got to get used to keeping talking, you know. I don't necessarily, but it's just a bit boring if I don't. That's also interesting because I know that for the couple of new drivers who joined as I joined, full quality is not something that they are used to. And I'm not particularly used to commentating. I mean, obviously, it's what happens day in, day out in Formula 1, and therefore I'm used to the format. But when it comes to actually witnessing the format in game, it's not something I've done often. I've not done it at all, so we'll get that. That's about right, probably. Wouldn't be surprised if McLaren at the bottom, Mac off 97 goes out on the inters, because there was interesting. Am I missing something? I don't know, I felt like the retirement was a bit early. I wonder if something was gonna happen, but I don't really know. Either way, it appears we are still go, and that means I think there will be one unlucky fellow, unless I can't do maths, can I? Let me think about this for a second. That's not even maths, it's just simple common sense. We will have one unlucky fellow alongside Leon who isn't going to make it into the next round of qualifying. I suppose that's why the inters are being used, because with it being a full quali, you can't really go out and scrub a set of softs for a banker lap. It's not a very good strategy. You'll pay for it if you get to those latter stages. And that does mean, sadly, that these first runs are going to be a little bit of a non-event, I suppose. Let's get rid of that overlay for a second. I wonder if the sound is just a bit low, but I can't really test it. There's a bit of carbon fibre on the side of the road. There's the end plate of that Aston Martin. So something happened going out of the pits there, I think. The sound is quite low. I wonder if that's just me. No, that was probably just me. Anyway, we're running on. Well, we're going to follow the only mainer, Williams, MSE Albini. We're going to follow him through the first and then the second as he goes on his outlap. And actually there is someone on a flyer, so there's a couple on a flyer actually, and one of them of note is the Alpine, who is the championship leader. It's an invalid flyer though, so that was a waste of time, but oh well. Instead we will skip back up to the Mercedes Leo A44 6497. He's on the soft compound, which is an interesting choice given that it is the first round of qualifying, but Q1 if you will. But of course, if you wanted to try and get that lap in early, I suppose there are the positives to doing so. You don't want to get caught up in traffic going for that last run and risking being the one other driver who gets knocked out of Q1. That would be, I'd say, mildly embarrassing, and I would laugh at it. So there is pride to play for in Q1. It is not necessarily the biggest of you're not fighting for pole yet, but you're definitely fighting to not be second last. So Leo up to the line. Let's see what lap he can put on the board. So 1:21.3. I'd expect that to be not necessarily the. Well, I reckon I'd expect that to probably be beaten. Whether that is by the next up to the line, which is not going to be Albino. I thought he was longer through that. I think I'm just tripping. Either way, there was Reflex's pit off of, he was on a flyer, 100% I remember seeing that. But up to the line there is Gansveit also coming into the pit. I feel like that's not worth shortening that to that. I should call him Falcon in German. It's probably better. Instead of just calling him like, what is it? Like Gansveit is like something around or something like that. Anyway, I digress. Matt Copper on the intermediates, he set a time 2.7 seconds off the pace. That is definitely not going to be at the front, and Albini does the same on the inters to set a banker lap. Alex Squire goes fastest and is already dipping into the 20s, so the 120s are what I was expecting to see, and of course that has meant that the two Mercedes are there we go, okay, fair enough. The 120s are what I was expecting. The 119s weren't what I was expecting to see, mainly because that's probably faster than my time trial time. Anyway, I mean, he's got a point to prove, has Howard. I can't tell if that is Howard or Howard, but with a W at the front for the hell of it. So we'll soldier on with Howard, and then if he's got a problem with it, he can say so, because that's what it looks like. So we'll go with it. Squire, is he on another pusher? Is he gone for a double push on those softs? Because of course it is the soft runners who are at the front as it stands. No, he will be boxing. You can tell he's not got the ERS on. Further down the order you can see the gulf of those who've gone on inters off the bat, just to set a lap time that they can use as a benchmark for their actual flyer. And of course, Reflex now on another flyer lap. I think I'm sure he aborted a flying lap before, so this is going to be his first full flying lap, assuming he does complete it. And through the first two corners, it does look pretty nice and tidy. He's kept it at least kept it in check. There wasn't too much going on there, but of course, clean and tidy doesn't necessarily correlate to speed. And again, through well, there we go. He's not particularly clean tied through there, but it is a purple sector 1, or at least it says it's purple sector 1 on the mini-map, as it does sometimes lie, and it has lied to me often, so not going to get ahead of myself again. But Ascari goes the Alfa Romeo. It's not the only Alfa Romeo in the race, of course we have XPG Flame as well. So I think the only teams we are missing is one Alfa Tauri, one Ferrari, and this is taking too much of my... there's a Haas as well, yeah. So it's up to P3 for Reflex GP. He pretty much unseats everyone who probably didn't set a representative time. Those on the softs, I would assume, would probably want to be higher up than they are. The mediums, of course, aren't the optimum tyre for qualifying. That's pretty safe to say, and neither are the inters. So Reflex does it's a decent enough job to post it in P3. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to be looking behind him. I think P3 is probably safe enough, but it's going to rely on a lot of drivers putting in a nice clean lap come the end of the session. And someone who's going to want to put in a nice clean lap pretty quickly is your current championship leader. He's going to want to put the hammer down. That was a very aggressive line into Ascari, but it is a purple sector 2 again. I'm not entirely sure if it is, but we'll stick with it and pretend it is, because if it says it is, then it must at least be on my end, right? Like, I don't know any better, so as far as I'm concerned it is. Up to the line goes the Alpine. Is it going to be provisional P1? It is indeed, by 2/10. And of course the gap then from first to third is 1.4 seconds, give or take. So, and Max Hippo currently not on a valid lap, so those two are the two currently battling head to head for the championship. I'm not entirely sure if it is just those two. We will very quickly verify that. So as it stands, the gap between them is 22 points, but then CLM, who isn't here tonight, he's the Mercedes we're missing, so Ewan's filling in for him. He's only 29 points back, and then joint with him is Hyperigniter in the other Alpine, down in P12 currently, still having only set a time on the Inters, so, or at least having only gone out on the Inters. He's yet to leave the pits on the soft compound. So it is nice to see how people you would expect to stack up on paper given how the standings are, considering I've not seen any of this all season. That's a solid enough lap from currently the second Aston Martin in the pecking order. I'm not going to read out all the numbers, but he goes just behind his teammate. It's a decent enough position for him. I'm not entirely sure if it's safe, because I'm not sure what to expect when it comes to everyone going out who wasn't on softs, going on the softs, going for a lap. It's going to be a lot of traffic. It's going to be a lot of, I'd assume, a lot of carnage. If people can't get their laps right and people are pushing a little bit too far, but at least for now it seems everyone's going to be heading back or already back in the pits. There's a couple going on out laps already. One of those is XPG Flame. I was a bit wide at Parabolica. I did wonder if he's going to maybe get next lap invalidated for that, but actually, to be fair, it might not, because I'm not sure what track limits is. Let's have a gander at that quick as we watch XPG Flame head through the first sector. We get a lovely very much lack of game audio, because I think that's just a me problem. Not entirely sure. Again, it's a purple sector 1, so it could be cooking. We could be looking at someone else unseating the current championship leader at the top of the timing charts. Current championship leader who has retired from the session. I wonder if that was just being cocky and assuming that he's through, which he probably is. So, well, no, to be fair, he is through, but hey, you know, what's he doing, man? Like, anyway, it's an interesting tyre. I mean, it's not a lot of slipstream you can really get off a car going that slowly. There's another AlphaTauri, so I'm tripping on that as well. We're missing the other one. We're missing is the other McLaren. As up to the line goes XPG Flame, and he does take first position in Q1. It's a solid lap time, almost dips into the 118s, but it's just fractionally outside. And that is a good indicator of what we could be looking at the front of this grid. The battle that could be about to go down, at least in the last stages of qualifying. Because for now it is just about not being last on track, not being the slowest car on track. Got to keep one eye on the chat just in case something comes up, but well, actually should probably keep one eye on the other chat as well. Let's get all the chats that I could possibly have to look at up, as we pretty much, there's not a lot to see. I don't think Reflex on another lap, but I'm not entirely sure how necessary that is, considering he's currently in he's sitting pretty in P4. Flame retired, so I saw him leave. I assume he's then come back and since retired. Hyperignite around Parabolica, he's going to be looking to jump to the front, but of course right now it's not necessarily about being at the front, it's about not being last. That's P5 for the other Alpine. just closed something that I shouldn't have closed. But now here they go. You can see a couple of cars already making their way out of the pits and through that first sector. There's a bit of a gaggle heading through sector 1 there. There's a couple of cars getting pretty close to one another just on outlaps. And yeah, the race does indeed definitely start tomorrow, so I apologise if you came expecting it, you know. You've got to wait another 24 hours at least. No, I'm kidding. We got, what would it be, 15 minutes Q2, 12 minutes Q3, and then a couple of minutes to load between them, I think, because I'm not entirely sure how quali works. I'm not sure if you have to load between each session. I'd assume you do. Never done it before, full quali on this game. But if you think about it, that's like, give or take half an hour, probably. Yeah, looks about right. Just check the time on Xbox. I was about to say the only person on a flying lap is the McLaren. I get the feeling the Mercedes isn't on a flying lap. Just a thought, by the fact that there's a distinct lack of front wing on that car, but don't think they're going for P1 on that. So instead, we're gonna watch Matt Copper 97. He is the newcomer on the block, along with I'm the lemon one in the AlphaTauri. He's up in P6, so it's respectable qualifying so far from him. But Matt's got a lot to prove because he's currently in 15th. I'm telling you now, there's a lot lower than he wants to be. So we're running with him through Sector 1. And into the second chicane he goes. Nice and tidy again. He takes enough of the apex to carry enough speed through the corner and then through the Lesbos. Bloody hell. I've had a mare there. I tried to do two things at once and talk, and it's all gone horribly wrong. But instead, right, I've got my my stuff together, shall we say, and in the meantime it's P4 for Matt Copper 97. He's up there, he's not last. It's looking like a decent enough qualifying session for him. MSC Albini is currently last, so it's going to be a crunch point for him. He's got one lap to at least get that Williams off of the back of the grid, and 4.6 seconds is the current gap to P1. Of course, it is only about 2.4 off of the next slowest car. Now, there's still quite a deficit that he's got to overcome, and I'm not sure if he has set a soft lap yet, so it is going to be all down to this one. And here we go, he gets a little bit of traffic as he heads into Sector 2, but it's not enough really to disrupt him. So through the first Lesmo he goes, and it's nice and tidy again from him. Good enough on the exit of the second Lesmo as well. So it's looking like a clean lap, and of course a clean lap's really all you need to not be last in this Q1 session. And it looks like it's a purple Sector 2, of course, could be lying as Draskari goes, gets a little bit of that curb and unseats the rear of the car ever so slightly, but gets he keeps it in check, and now into Parabolica. Everything seems like it's been put together nicely for MSC Albini, and as he heads up to the line, it should be at least not last place, but I'm expecting a decent lap, and it is indeed. It's enough to knock Matt Copper 97 down to 5th, and it looks like it's going to be the Mercedes who had no front wing, who was on a flyer, lost a front wing, not entirely sure how, who's going to take that position of comfortably last out of 2 tenths, last out of everyone. So unlucky, I suppose. Unlucky. Oh dear. So here are your results. I get a full rundown of the results. The 2 out in Q1. It is the Haas who seemed to go on his own accord. He decided that he'd had enough and he didn't want to do it, so there he goes. He's out in P17. That is locked in, and P16 is the unlucky, I'd say, Leo A446497. I'm not going to keep saying all the numbers, but I might as well now. In the Mercedes, apparently it was his brother who did both his banker and his flying lap, so maybe that's the where the wing departed. And everyone else makes it through, and now we're going to lose another 5 in the next round of qualifying, and that's where it's going to start getting tasty, because now there's a lot more to lose. And it's a lot easier to lose it, so those who weren't necessarily at the front now, they're going to be starting to feel a bit of pressure, and I think that's for good reason. I'm not entirely sure how this works with regards to getting into the next qualifying. It looks like it's just going to go straight into it, so hey, you learn something new every day, and for me it's going to be how this game works when you do full qualifying. Right, everything gets reset, of course. Nothing will carry forward, so it will be down to everyone who was at the front to go again and set the same barnstorming lap that they managed to do to get there in the last round. So I'd expect to see the same again from most of those drivers, but of course you can't really expect anything in motorsport, and things can go horribly wrong pretty quickly, and I'm here for it. I'm definitely here for it, so let's see. I suppose notable mention as well, as a couple of drivers start to make their way out. I wonder if this is just going to be straight onto softs for everyone. Looks like it will be. I think it's going to be a special mention for I'm the Lemon. If he can get out Q2, I won't laugh at him, but if he gets knocked out in Q2, he's terrible. So, to be fair, if Matt gets knocked out in Q2, he's terrible, and I mean terrible, but he won't. But either way. Got a couple of people surprised they're still in, so clearly that Q1 was a mixed bag across the board. It was definitely an interesting one. I kind of lost my bearings halfway through trying to figure out how to get the Twitch chat up, because it seemed to make it disappear, so that's pretty impressive. I'm apparently a magician. So there's got to be a way I can turn the sound up. Is it just that I can't hear it? Because it's nice to be able to hear them go by, you know. Then when it goes to the first person, it gets really loud. Or first person, but like the onboard cameras get really loud. As I think the AlphaTaurians maybe get out of the way of somebody. Oh, yeah, I think so. No one's on a flyer though, anywhere near him, of course, because the first on flyers are going to be those who've just crossed the line, which is Reflex, and then behind him, who are in the Red Bull, the lead Red Bull, I believe, in Q1. Of course, he is second in the standings, so you would expect him to be there, and he's going to be expecting to be back there. So, while this is, of course, probably going to just be your run-of-the-mill banker lap, it's going to be a little bit more pressure on him, because there's a lot more to lose. And as I've said before, it's a lot easier to lose it. A little bit sketchy on through the first Lesmo, but second Lesmo seemed tidy enough, and his DRS open as he heads down this straight into the middle through the middle sector and into the third sector. Gets stopped nicely for Ascari and then carries speed through to get a decent enough exit as well. So it's all been nice and tidy so far. If you can get Parabolica right, it's going to be a decent enough banker lap that he might just be able to take a breath, you know, and not necessarily worry too much. Reflex puts in a 120.3, but I believe that's going to immediately be beaten, and it is. It's a 119.3 for Howard. It's a whole second and a fraction faster, as there's a medium runner who set a lap as well. I didn't quite notice that. I didn't wonder if those mediums only just showed up when the time got set, or if I'm just tripping and didn't see it. But nonetheless, we got some interesting antics going on, as there's an AlphaTauri and a McLaren. McLaren was kind of bump drafting him through that Buster the Boss, and yeah, it's Buster the Boss and Matt Cobb and i7 doing some interesting tactics, you know, in the qualifying. Matt takes that inside. Buster the Boss is going to go a bit wide, and Matt's almost overtaken him on his flyer. Matt's going to go up to P3. Buster only P8, so I guess Matt just caught him up on his flying lap. But that means that Matt unseats Albini, but in the meantime, Tarrio also managed to get in a lap that put him within a place of his title rival. Not necessarily within touching distance. There's a decent enough gap that maybe Howard can can definitely take a step back, and that takes a lot of pressure off of him, because that was a pretty stonking lap to put in off the bat. At least considering what was set in Q1 and how I expect those outside of the top 10 to be putting laps in. Those who haven't set laps yet: Flame, who's still in the pits; Falk, who's heading down into the third sector almost now, as he heads under the Lenovo Bridge, the famous, definitely not just I've noticed it now, Lenovo Bridge. And he's going to have a bit of traffic ahead of him, but they also on flying laps all over that apex curb. He took way too much of it. It's completely unsettled the car, and that, I think he's going to pay a lot for that. But I wonder if he's just going to stick it out and still get this banker lap in, because after all, it is just going to be something for him to use as a marker when it comes to setting an actual flyer. But as you can see, the time loss from that mistake, he's comfortably off the back of those who've set laps, as those who were ahead of him dive into the pits, and there's only a couple of cars left on the track. It's around Parabolica. We're on with the AlphaTauri of I'm the Lemon One. He's fast enough to get ahead of Falk in the Ferrari, but it's not fast enough to get considerably far up the leaderboard, so he's going to definitely have to go again, and he's going to start feeling it's going to get a bit a little bit hot for him, you know. He's going to start to worry that if he goes out in Q2, I'm going to laugh at him, and I'm definitely going to laugh at him. Elsewhere, I was about to say elsewhere, but everyone's in the pits apart from Flame on an outlap. Falk, who's heading to the pits, I'd assume. Arthur, who's I'm the Lemon One, I should say. Just name drop off the bat. It's all gone wrong. I suppose it is the janky controller movements through Ascaria not helping him. He's got to improve, honestly. He's trash. Anyway, enough of the Lemon One slander. We'll run with Flame, because he is the only car on track on a flying lap, and of course we are expecting him to be at the front, so if we get a high profile mistake on stream, that'll be pretty tasty. But I'd be surprised if we get it, as into the first chicane he goes, gets it stopped nicely, turned in on both curves, enough of an exit, gives himself enough of room for the exit as well. Gets power down nicely, and pretty much as tidy as you like, hugs all of the inside of the track there to shave as many milliseconds off the time as he can. And again, he's got it pretty nicely slowed down, although he tanks the curb through the second chicane. He's taken pretty much all of it, absolutely flattened it. The first Lesmo done and dusted. The second, for a second I thought it was all going to go wrong, but I think that was just a bit of a tech issue on my end because it's just ever so slight jump towards the barrier didn't seem to cost him anything at all. Ascari's clean as you like. It doesn't take as much of that inside curb as we saw the Ferrari do a couple of laps ago. So Flame's got this one nice and tight. He's got it pretty much all kept together through Parabolica, nice and wide. But instead, I thought for a second, did think for a second he was going to dive into the pits. Oh, that was a very odd decision if he had done. But it's enough to go within 2/10 of Howard. I'm not gonna lie. As he goes straight on turn 1, I'm not entirely sure the reason for that. I did kind of look away for a second, look at something going on maybe on the Discord, but I was kind of expecting that to be faster than the than the Red Bull. So you saw a couple of purple sectors there, and clearly he's lost out where it mattered because it's getting all out of shape as he's almost going to get in the way of the Alpine Hyper Igniter. And I wonder if that is maybe the idea, to just try and put off the man running currently in P9, or is he maybe going to try and orchestrate a tow? I'm not entirely sure. He's giving it a bit of a wiggle down the straight, moving ever so slightly uncertainly, but then gets out of the way pretty nicely, giving his Hyper Igniter a lovely tow to a purple second sector, and he's on the medium compound as well. So it's interesting that he reckons that this could be a lap that gets him comfortably into Q3. It's on the step higher tyre, well, step harder tyre is what I wanted to say. It's P7. Is it safe? I would argue probably, because if you consider the gap from 7th to 11th, it's a considerable margin, and you got to then consider that everybody between him and 11th, as well as everyone, there's a lot of people who've got to make mistakes for him to get, well, a lot of people who've got to put in good laps for him to get through, and there's not many people who can make mistakes before he sees himself safely through. So it's good enough for Hyper Igniter. I think he's got this pretty much in the bag regarding making Q3, and that I think can be said for everyone above him, and probably Reflex and Maxia Pro. I mean, I'm going out on a limb maybe with that, but I think Buster the Boss is the only car currently who's going to really be feeling a bit of pressure and maybe a bit of, not entirely sure, words are escaping me, feeling a little bit fatigued, you know. But hey, such is life. We're going to run with Buster the Boss because behind him, there's a lot of people ahead of him who seem to be on flying laps, and they may improve, but that's not necessarily where the fight's going to be, because this is what matters, and Buster the Boss has got to get this right, and then hope that Backfish specifically, because Backfish was up there in the Q1, he was up there around P4 I believe, P4, P5 with his teammate Maxia Pro, so I'd expect him to be putting in a time that's fast enough to dislodge Buster the Boss pretty comfortably. So Buster the Boss has got to get his foot down, and he has got to put his lap together, because otherwise he's probably going to see himself kissing goodbye to a Q3 appearance. And I tell you what, an improvement by best part of 9/10 is definitely the start you want, as his teammate dislodges him already. So I'm the Lemon one is up to 10th. As it stands, he's through, but I don't think he will be, because Buster the Boss, currently heading into Parabolica, let's see if he can get Parabolica right. He gets power down pretty nicely. He doesn't take as wide as I've seen, but of course it's not necessarily the shortest line to the line. It's P4, 4/10 off P1, and a comfortable margin clear of the drop zone. So it dislodges his teammate straight away into the unlucky 5 who are going to be dropping out of this qualifying session. Backfish has to set a lap. He's on the soft compound now. Let's see what he's capable of. And also Falk was pretty fast in Q1 as well, so maybe at this point Reflex could be in trouble, because you saw, I didn't realise how much Lemon was going to take out of his original banker time. He took a whole second chunk out of it, so that's carved into what Reflex had as a gap, and also what Hyperigniter had. So Hyperigniter clearly thinks he's got to go again, and I'm starting to believe maybe he does as well, because specifically the likes of Backfish and Gansvite Vegvalk, or something like that. I think it's probably close enough. Although Backfish, I don't think he's improving at all. No, he's backed off, I think, so he's going to go again. He's got 46% battery. I think it's probably enough. Maybe he's just going to accept, cut his losses and accept defeat. Gansvite goes fast enough for 13th. That's more than likely going to see him out. It was a 4.5 improvement, but ultimately not enough. Stepping Pig's got a lot to make up, because he's in the other Red Bull, and it's very much a scenario where Red Bull want to fight for the constructors, and that was all over the exit curve. He's absolutely thrown it through there, and somehow managed to keep his foot in, so he's still pointing in the right direction, and ultimately he's pointing towards, I hope for his sake, towards Q3, because up to the line he goes. He's 14th as it stands, but as that lap comes in, it's 4/10 improvement. Clearly Ascari went all wrong. I mean, after all, Variante Ascari is very tricky, and that was how tricky it is in full motion for you there. Hyperigniter a 10th up. Reflex couldn't improve on his lap, or he just abandoned it, which I think is probably likely given he's in the pits currently. But it does mean it's going to be down to Stepping Pig. I don't think it's going to be able to improve. Backfish not improving. Gansvite on an invalid lap. Ewan could be. Can he dislodge Reflex in P10? This could be where he makes himself known as the reserve, filling in for I think it's CLM or an acronym like that. My memory might be serving me badly, but up to the line goes the reserve in the Mercedes. Is it enough? It's P12. It's ahead of Stepping Pig, who is not an improvement. Neither is Falk, who pits. Backfish also couldn't improve, so those are the drivers you're saying goodbye to, and right on the cusp by 100th of a second. It's the other AlphaTauri I'm the lemon on. A number 55 who bites the dust by such a criminally small margin. The others were about a 10th or so back, and then more. But to go out by such a fractional amount must be pretty tough to take. Oh, and in the melee as well. I didn't quite mention it, given that the real action was at the bottom end. Well, what mattered was at the bottom end, but clearly the movement was at the front, because the Hyperigniter put in a lap on the softs that was fast enough to go second. I've never had this view after a race. You know, the old third person cam. But there's your Q2 results, and the gap between the two at the front was just as fractional as the gap between 10th and 11th, but nonetheless we had to say goodbye to 5 drivers, and those were the 5. It means we're cut down to 2 Williams. I think there's an Aston Martin, there's both Alpines still in there, but we got rid of 1 Red Bull, which is pretty crucial for the constructors, and of course cutting away both one Mercedes. I think we lost 1 in Q1 as well, so both Mercedes out. That's massive for the constructors too. So we head into Q3 now. This is where they go for pole, and this is where those who are at the front are going to get the limelight, because it is going to be all about who can put the fastest time in. I mean, it seems simple enough, but it's a lot easier said than done, and I think we've demonstrated that so far in Q1 and Q2 where it was just about not being in the bottom couple. Now you're going for pole, and of course I think the main two to look out for would be Hyper Igniter, Flame, Tarrier and Heward, who could all quite easily be up there. Maybe even the likes of Matt Copper 97 or maybe even Albini. He was up there in Q2 and not entirely sure where he placed in Q1, but clearly Q2 was enough to convince me that he could be one to fight at the front in qualifying. So they all flock out. It seems pretty early. Of course it is shortened since there's only 10 cars on the track. It's only 12 minutes to set a lap compared to what I'm used to, which is an 18-minute short qualifying. So we're going to have action come thick and fast, and clearly all the drivers agree that it's all about getting a banker in early, so that when it comes to that one lap where they really need to get their head down, focus up and get everything right, they've got enough in the tank still. As it stands, we are just going to be sat for a little while as they all pootle around the track, warming up the tyres. Tarrier on the mediums. Is he? Yeah, he is indeed. So, it will just be a banker lap, but of course, I'm not entirely sure if there is anyone who's got enough fresh sets of softs to really just throw one at this banker lap and throw one at a qualifying lap. But although it is quite difficult when you're not entirely sure how many tyres people get when they do full quali on this game. But oh well, you see everyone kind of bunching up. No one wanted to be the first to blink, but the first to blink was Albini. He decided that he didn't want to wait around, and he's going to lead this rather elongated train down into turn 1. They're going to be a bit too far off, I think, to really benefit from much of a slipstream, but of course it is the margins that count, and any little opportunity that these drivers are going to get to gain a notch in performance, they're going to take it. So Albini, if he's not quite fast enough, he could end up giving Maxia Pro a nice little tow, especially towards the third sector out of the second Lesmo. That could be where Maxia Pro makes a bit of a, well, that's where you could see this strategy of his pay dividends. But for now, he's just got to keep it nice and clean and tidy, has been the words of the day so far. But clean and tidy won't cut it anymore. We're going for pole. It's got to be fast. It's got to be pretty much perfect. It doesn't necessarily always have to be perfect, but it's got to be you got to aim for perfection and then hope that if you don't hit it, your opponents don't hit it either. So Albini will be the first to set a qualifying lap, and behind him I think Maxia Pro's dropped off quite a margin. So yeah, he's invalidated his lap. That's not, I say, Heward went straight ahead. I didn't even notice him. So Albini, I thought, would be the first to cross the line. Instead, he's going to cross the line now, and I don't think he'll be in the 118s, because we have breached the 118s. Heward into the 118s. It's 118.978. He's got Albini 3/10 back, Tarrier a whole second back, of course, on the medium compound. So that's not representative. But Matt Copper 97 also in the 118s, and he's dislodged Heward for pole. Provisional pole, of course, as it stands. The second Williams as well, the reserve. Allied Squire, currently P6 in the standings. So he's been kind of jack of all trades when it's come to, not jack of all cars, I suppose. He's been filling in here, there and everywhere, it seems, this season. Picking up all the points when they're on offer. And he's staking his claim for why he is top 6 in the driver's standings, because he's in P3 of the stands. Behind him we got up to the line Hyper Igniter, in the only Alpine to currently be on the soft compound. He's 44 seconds off of that. So both Alpines deciding that their banker laps don't need to be particularly impressive. As I tell you what, the spin was impressive though. Instead, I should probably be paying attention to this that's going on. I'm not entirely sure if he's trying to weave through the barriers or if he's trying to knock them all over, because it looked like he was trying to weave through them, but then there are only 3 left. It is XPG Flame, who has gone mildly under radar because I kind of forgot for a split second. I was too busy following Hyper Igniter expecting him to put a lap time in. It ended up being that lap time, and that threw me, and I didn't notice that XPG Flame goes a whole 10th ahead of Matt Copper 97 and Who at 90. Who at 70 even. I'm tripping again. Very good at that. Buster the Boss. He heads through Parabolica up to the line. Is it enough to put him ahead of Hyper Igniter and Tarrier? Indeed it is. It is the last of those who've set a soft run, a representative soft run, shall we say. Tarrier now on the soft compound, of course. I think that lap was... Oh, maybe he has just set... It says he's on the soft, and it says he's set a soft... I don't think he has set a soft lap. No, he hasn't. No. Game doing game things. He's currently got the softs selected. He's on the softs. He's going out on the softs to do a soft lap. His current lap's medium run. So, yeah. I'm not tripping. Maxia Pro is doing some impressive weaving down the straights. He's got to get all the heat in those tyres, you know. Must have all the heat. Still going exceptionally slowly though, but you know, whatever you want to do to get it in that window. It's currently an invalid outlap, which is interesting. But he's gonna move to the right hand side to be out of the way of Buster the Boss, who I assume is just gonna be diving to the pit lane. You know, I've been meaning to do it for a while, and I haven't even got around to check what the track limits are. Do you reckon I can check? I think I can check it in the settings, can't I? Yeah, I don't play this game too often. That's very wide from Alpine there. If I go lobby options, no, it won't be there. It'll be in rules and flags, won't it? The corner cutting is on strict. I see a couple where I thought that's a little bit like the entrance to Ascari's been cutting it very fine, but is indeed strict track limits. I'd have been surprised if it wasn't strict track limits. I don't know a league that doesn't run strict track limits, but for a moment I was sold otherwise. But there we go. We're going to run on board. I say we're going to run on board. We're not going to run on board because we're using broadcast cam, and we're not going to use broadcast cam on Tarrier because he's lifted off, so he's not on a flying lap as it stands. Whereas Maxia Pro, I believe, is on a flying lap. Hopefully those softs are in that perfect temperature window that he was trying to get them in on that outlap, because he put a lot of effort into it, and that effort has repaid him with a P6 ever so slightly over a second off the pace. Meanwhile, Reflect heading through the second Lesmo under the first of the 2 Lenovo bridges. There's 2 Lenovo bridges. One of them though is a bit of a concave dip before the Lenovo bridge. So clearly the Alpha bridge. I am very tired. I mean, as has been said, turn 1 could be fun. As Reflex heads, he takes a very tight line through Parabolica. He's going to try and he's going to opt maybe more for the carry less speed but more direct approach. And yeah, I can't say it's paid off for him. 1.7 seconds off of provisional pole, and I'd be surprised if Flame is dislodged, but can't count out Hooard or Matt Copper 97. Hooard up to the line. He can dislodge Matt, but it's merely within a tenth of Flame, so P2 as it stands. Is Matt going to have an answer to that? It's getting close to the point of no return. Here he goes. You see the lad run to the end of the pit lane, to the edge of the pit lane, and then usher his car into pit row. Buster Boss retires. Is that on track? Did he crash? Or is that just in the pits? I think it's just in the pits, so he's had enough. He has had enough, indeed. Further back, Maxi Pro not on a lap. Tarrier is on a lap, and it's improved pretty drastically. That, of course, is his improvement over the first 2 sectors. So let's see how much better this third sector was than it was on his medium run. I'd expect him to be at the front, but how close to the front? Only just over 2.5 tenths off. So, for your championship leader, is that mildly disappointing? Oh, it's not a postcard, but either way, Reflex clearly not on a lap either. And now, Hood isn't on a lap also, so I think Tarrier took the escape road wiggle there because he came at that from an interesting line. But Maxia Pro is now on a lap, so we'll watch him as he heads through the 2 Lesmos in sector 2, see if he can keep the rear in check through both corners and also keep it within track limits, because now I'm certain that you exceed track limits is going to be invalid. And I have seen invalid laps, so I'm not entirely sure why I was so adamant that maybe we weren't running strict track limits, but I think I'm just being a div. Either way, Maxia Pro, it's nice and clean as well. It's worth noting through Ascari. He doesn't take the extreme line of just straight up the back of the Alfa Romeo of Flame, but Flame's going to immediately take this opportunity to try and get as much of a slipstream as he can off Maxia Pro. Maxia Pro is going to go to the inside and immediately brake. He knows that he doesn't want to give Flame that. Hang on a second. Did Flame get to the line in time? I don't think he did. I was about to say he doesn't want to give Flame that advantage. Flame didn't make the line. So it is all down to Matt. It's in his hands. He's down through the first sector. Through the second Lesmo, he goes, absolutely throws the car through there, but it sticks. The McLaren complies, and now as he heads into the third sector almost, let's see how far off P1 he is. It's a fractional improvement. It looks like it'll be borderline enough to take the front row off of Huard 70. But for now, Allied Squire, out of nowhere, with the RKO, P1 provisionally by 1.5 tenths. Now Matt Copper's got a lot to do because he's got to get his head down through Parabolica. He's got a lot to make up, and he's not got a lot of corners to make it up in. It's only the straight up to the line. He's on the front row. It was enough to dislodge Flame, but Allied Squire out of nowhere. That's exceptional stuff. The absolute scenes. I hadn't even noticed. Fair play. I don't know if you can hear the clapping over the headset, but fair play Allied Squire, because it's P1 pole position. That's fair play to him, because he has played a blinder, absolute blinder. You cannot argue with that. Hey, I bet it feels even better when you do full quali pole position. You know, like short quali is one thing, but to go through all 3 tiers of qualifying to get that pole position by in such a way as well. So this will be the top 10 order then for the start of your race at Monza. Allied Squire and Matt will take the front row. It'll be XPG Flame and Huard 70 who occupy the second row. So it's been pretty disappointing, all things considered, for Alpine. Of course, Tarrier down in P6 and Hyperignite's only P9 for him. So Alpine, in their bid for the Constructors' Championship, they've been a little disappointing, but of course points aren't handed out in the race. And I said it pretty often in the past, and I will say it again now. The qualifying in in reality does not mean a lot at all, especially at the level we're raced at. There'll be a lot of incidents, more than likely, and it's just a case of keeping your nose clean and making sure that you're at the front when the when it hits that crunch point, lap 27 off 27, final couple of corners. As long as you're there, that's when it matters to be at the front. For now, it's just a novelty, you know. I'll just have a peek at race director. Let's see what the strategy is. I'm not entirely sure what the strategy is. I've not done Monza on this track. It's quite difficult to keep talking a lot, but we give it a good go, you know. And of course, this is where you start to be able to knit everything together. So you see Q1, Q2 and Q3, those who fell in the earlier qualifying sessions, they all come back into it now, and it does look like the medium compound seems to be the play for those at the front. I'm surprised that Matt and Flame both opt for the softs. I feel like the soft is although to be fair, if Squire's going to go for the softs, then fair enough. I think if Squire went for the mediums, then we are at 5 red lights. We have a formation lap even. That's perfect. That is perfect. I didn't realise we were running formation lap. I've had it on a couple of leagues where we don't run formation lap, so formation lap's nice. It means I can get the overlay up pretty nicely, you know. Get the gap to intervals, gap to leader. Why not? You know. That'll do. We'll get the tyres up because I want to see the tyres. So everything's locked in now. We get to talk about it as they trundle around, get those tyres into a nice window, and they get their heads into the game. For 27 laps around the I was going to say the Circuit International, the Monza, but I don't think that's what it's called. I think I've just made that up. It's just Monza. And it is those front three who've opted for the soft compound. Of course, soft compound, they're going to want to get the jump off the bat. I think that is the aim. They're all aiming to get that jump on each other. I think Squire for a second thought about, or at least hadn't changed off of mediums. I did wonder why Matt and Flame would gamble for the softs. But I suppose if there's enough of you at the front going for the softs, it kind of makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see if Heward and Albini, and also Tarrier, of course, they have exhibited that pace to be at the front and be at the sharp end. For the majority of the races, we've had a couple of people making contact on the formation lap. It'll be interesting if those guys, from like the 4th down to around Maxia Pro, even if Hyperigniter can get his way through the field, because clearly he's got pace as well. We saw for the earlier stages of qualifying. If they can stick with those soft runners, because of course Monza can sometimes become a bit of a DRS train. It's such a long straight that if there's not big contact and people get very spread out, it can just be the case of stick in someone's DRS, take those mediums as long as possible, and then the soft runners don't get the gap they need to make the advantage count on the softer compound. But either way, of course, it's something I'm new to. A bit of a mess as you watch everyone stack up into their qualifying, into their grid slots even. That's a pretty nice angle. I kind of want the whole grid, but you know, we will focus on Allied Squire. That's a terrible angle, actually. They're all terrible angles. We get 5 red lights, and I can't see the lights, but we are underway. Allied Squire is going to have to defend immediately because Matt's got the jump on him, and so has XPG Flame. So they're going to be 3 wide into turn 1. Matt spins. He takes out Flame with him. Squire's gone through. Matt's just almost jumped the Alfa Romeo. It's an absolute mare from Matt Copper 97. Allied Squire goes through. He maintains P1. Matt's still in P2. I don't know how he's managed to get through that corner without a penalty or damage. But Maxia Pro takes P3. Oh, Albini's going to take it immediately off him. They're running into the second chicane. Albini to the inside. He gets the first apex, but all over the curb goes to Aston Martin. There's contact, and then to the outside, Tarrier tries to make the advantage count. He's got his teammate Hyperigniter to his inside. They make contact. Teammates come together. Everything's kicking off. Tarrier's off. He's round. Is he going to be in the way? That's not good. He's come together with the Ferrari, and there's absolute carnage. And somehow the only driver to DNF from that is Falk in the Ferrari. We have a VSC as it stands. Allied Squire maintains P1. He's got his teammate in P3 there, sandwiching Matt in P2. Matt somehow, after an absolutely horrendous start, has managed to keep that second position. Surely there's some sort of form of clip against him, because that was terrible. He's just absolutely thunder punted Flame into turn 1. I've kept it PG there, you know. You should be proud of me. Flame clearly got damage. He's going to jump straight into the pit lane. That promotes both Alpha Tauris into P6 and P7 as it stands. We got a full safety car even, so the VSC was out for a moment, but instead we're going to get completely neutralised conditions. We're all going to back up behind the, is it going to be the Aston Martin? Is it going to be the Mercedes? I can't remember. It's the Mercedes. Oh, look at that. It was a 50-50. I didn't even make a guess. How pathetic. Allied Squire's got to do it all again though. He got jumped by both Matt and Flame off the start, but this time he's going to be controlling the speed of the field when we go green again. But we won't go green again yet because there's a good hand. There's a handful of cars already in the pits. You know, going off for those soft compound onto the hards for Ewan, hards for Heward and Tarrier. So there was some big contact. It seemed like maybe ghosting's on, or like on a very reduced amount. Let's have a look. Let's see if we have ghosting on at all. Collisions on. Disabled, disabled. So yeah, no ghosting. Fair enough. I respect it. That's pretty jazzy. That makes it even better. I'd see why only 4 people finished Monaco now. Fair enough. Like that just makes it better, honestly. You got to be on your toes, and there was a lot of people who were not on their toes, or they just were stuck in a position where they really couldn't do anything about it. So of course we might as well have a look now, because we can see the position change. I forget which way around it. It's Hyper Igniter. He's up to P5, I think that's meant to be, because he's just for some reason headed past Maxi Pro under the safety car, but he's up 4 positions. Stepping Pig's up a couple of positions as well. He's just dove past everyone to then go into the pits. He's got, I think there was an end plate missing there, so superficial damage for him. And Leon up to P8. Considering he started off the back, he just retired from full qualifying immediately, went out in Q1. He's the only Haas driver in this grid, which can always help him when it comes to boxing for under safety car, like neutralised conditions, where there's always the worry of if you're running high with your teammate high up in the grid, and there's always the worry that you have to double stack. He's not got that worry. He's not got that in the back of his mind, so he's a free bird, shall we say. And I mean, as is, I suppose, Matt up in P2. The fact that he's still in this race without any damage is an absolute marvel, and arguably a disgrace, because it looked like that turn 1 contact was all him. But nonetheless, we will move, and instead we will. That's an interesting graphic there. The lovely neither arrow, but gained 1 position. Things you love to see. So he's managed to start in 11th, but somehow be up 1. Good stuff. Perfect game. Love you, EA. You've done a really good job with this. Of course, they are your biggest losers from that first lap contact. Well, the biggest loser, Falk. He's completely out of this race. He went out in Q2, of course, and he would have waited through the whole of Q3 to get back in this race, just to go out on lap 1. It's a real kick in the teeth for him. But anyway, let's see what those drivers can do who have all boxed for fresher tyres, because now we get to see another restart, and we'll jump to the front because it is down to Allied Squire. When will he go? Does he go early, or does he run it as close to the line as he can? I'm not entirely sure. He jumps, he goes pretty much to the line, and I think it caught Matt out because Matt's going to be in trouble. Albini's close to the back of him. He's going to look maybe to the inside. He does so, but he does so rather nonchalantly. You know, he just looks there and then decides to slot back in behind the McLaren. Further back, I think there might be contact, although they seem to get through pretty cleanly. Who had getting boxed in there by Reflex and Ewan, but I think behind maybe there was a spinner, but I think they got through pretty cleanly, all things considered. Lemon up to PA as well. He's got Leon in front of him now. Squire, I say, for the lead. Matt goes down the inside of the second chicane, and he takes the lead off of Allied Squire. It's P1 currently for Matt Copper 97, and it's currently Williams double podium behind him, but it's a long way to go before you can really talk about podium. For now, it's just a case of those two Williams working together to try and put Matt under pressure. Of course, Albini's still on the mediums. He can take those a lot longer into the race, and that could pay into his favour when it comes to strategy. But maybe he could be in a bit of a pickle, because the number 7 in the currently second Williams, I was about to say, and I'd not even got the opportunity to, I was about to say he might find himself getting stuck behind his teammate, but instead his teammates find himself getting almost stuck into a foot thick Tech Pro. He got it running still, you know, fair play to him. We have a VSC, and he's managed to get straight back to the back of the pack, the number 72, so fair play to him, I suppose. We had a couple of drivers pit, Hyperigniter and Leon, and also Allied Squire, who's retired. Reflex also boxers, but those who've boxed early at least have boxed early and committing to going long into this race as another safety car. But Allied Squire is clearly absolutely enraged. Like, something went badly wrong. I do wonder if, you know, he lost P1 to Matt Copper, and then maybe those red tinted glasses, you know, the rage kind of took over ever so slightly. You know, you don't want to be losing out too much. His teammate was gaining on him. He had a bit I had a lot of pressure on him from behind, of course, and through Ascari it's just all gone Pete Tong, quite frankly. It was all looking good for Williams, it really was, as a pretty hardcore Williams fan, all things considered, and that's across Formula 1, real IRL, and then also other racing leagues that race for them or team principal them. And Williams very much have a soft spot, so to see that it's quite a real shame. But Albini's still at the front, and yeah, we have at least got that to console us, I suppose, those hardcore Williams fans out there, the hardcore HIM Williams fans out there, you know, all one of them, and that's probably just Albini, because I don't know who his teammate is, and his teammate's not here. But anyway, nonetheless, two of them, because I can. I've seen a position swap there under safety car. I wonder what that was about. I wonder if that's going to be given back. Not entirely sure. Might have been someone coming out of the pits maybe, but anyhow, I mean, we'll get the position change out again, because let's have a gander at how things have changed now, because it does seem that those who were in such a good position off the first safety car, Hyperigniter and Leon, have taken the opportunity to box off the second one, so they're suddenly back down to where they started, pretty much. I mean, Hyperigniter's lost a lot more. Leon's still up on what he started, because having started last, but on his own row of the grid, I might add. I mean, that's pretty lonely, but nevertheless. And again, Ewan has managed, is it Ewan last time? But anyway, Ewan this time, again, managing to not gain any positions and yet still gain 4 positions. Good stuff. Matt claims it's not on him. I mean, I don't know, I was expecting him to claim. I wasn't expecting him really to go, I probably shouldn't have expected him to go, yeah, my bad. but it's absolutely just gone straight sideways, isn't it? It looked bad from at least the third person camera, but I do wonder if maybe there's a bit of maybe desync from what I can see to what contact happened. But currently I've just noticed it's an AlphaTauri 5.6, so can't count those out. You know, big points all coming maybe for the AlphaTauri lads if they keep this one. But here we go again. I was not with it for a second. I think Matt went early because everyone seemed to still be going through Parabolica as he'd gone. But he is, I think that was red because Albini's to his outside and Maxia Pro is not too far behind. Flame also getting in the action. Both of those in the contact off the first lap. And there's contact again. Everyone at turn 1 all bunching up. There's contact between both AlphaTauris. I think one of them has front wing damage maybe. Is that Buster? No, Buster seems alright. Lemon's going around the outside of Maxia Pro. I think Maxia Pro is going to take that position. But it's all going... There's a big fight in the midfield here and it's all going a bit... It's all getting a bit shaky for Maxia Pros. He's dropped back from the front 3. And Lemon got that all wrong and kind of backed everyone up behind him. So there's two Red Bulls in there. I've got to be careful because they're in pretty close proximity with each other. And the last thing they need is to come together as looked like the two Alpines did. But things are going to get very spicy because someone's going to the outside at Ascari and it kind of comes back together under the bridge and the Alpine has the inside. It becomes the outside and then becomes the inside again. But is he going to tank that curve? Instead he has to back off. Heward gets the position from Tarrier, from Stepping Pig. Lemon loses 4 positions in the space of a couple of corners. He had 3 people go past him on the straight. And I think he might be in trouble again because he's got Ewan behind him. Hyper Igniter as well getting past him. Ewan gets past him. Lemon's had a mare. He's got Backfish past him as well. Leon's not far behind. Leon's ahead, pretty much. If you get fractions, and he is now ahead. So Lemon's gone all the way back. Buster's pit. It's all gone wrong for the AlphaTauris. And Commentator's Curse strikes again. Albini P1 though. The only Commentator's Curse that hasn't come true yet is that Williams are cooking. But is Flame going to put an end to that? Because a move to the inside wasn't on yet. And Matt has dropped 1.3 seconds back. So, well, and then Maxia Pro is 4 seconds back off of him. So the fight currently is between Flame and Albini. But Albini currently holds P1. He's got Flame 3 temps behind him. That becomes 2 temps as they head through a second Lesmo. Flame gets a little bit slide through there. I wonder if that's damage affected. Matt, of course, claims he has bad rear wing damage, which is pretty impressive considering, well, to be fair, he did go backwards into the wall, having gone sideways into Flame. So, oh well. But he's gained a couple of attempts through those last couple of corners. He's looking to eat into the deficit he has to those front 2 cars. We have a 3-second penalty for track limits for the current second Alpine of the 2. He's behind his teammate and they're running in a pretty respectable 5.6. I say that, it's exactly what the AlphaTauris were running in before I jinxed them. And of course behind them, the 2 Red Bulls running 7.8. So that is your big fight for the constructors, and they're currently looking at a double points finish for both drivers. But it's not at the upper echelons of the points like they would have been hoping. Currently, those upper reaches are occupied by Albini, who's still 3 temps ahead of Flame, even though they've had... Oh, I don't think we've had DRS yet. DRS not active. I'm not sure if it is active yet. I think we'll get that next lap, considering we had safety car longer. I'm not entirely sure. Or was it VSC? Either way, Albini from Flame, and then Matt has managed to get back into the DRS. It's been a pretty... I say that, he's immediately gone out of the DRS, so... Matt did well originally, but... Clearly that first sector has not gone well for him. It's just absolutely... Oh, he's dropped immediately back 1.2 seconds back. And there's a spin as well. Tarrier's around. Was that Hyper Igniter who hit him? Because Hyper Igniter's... His exit's been... He's got a terrible exit there. And who has gone to the outside? Is he going to commit? He bites in at the 8... There's contact again. I can't get my words out. Hyper Igniter, he goes off on the inside, but then Heward's to the outside. He's also off the track on the, and he gets back across the oncoming traffic. Number 70 in the Red Bull. A contact between, I think that was both Alpines who came together, because it completely compromised Hyperigniter's exit. So I'd assume he tagged the rear of Tarrier. Buster Boss a bit off the back. Howard now, he's got both Hyperigniter and Tarrier behind him, and this could be a pretty big battle, because I don't think anything's happening any higher up as Lemon pits on lap 10. So he's demoted to pretty much the back. The two Alpines looking to get the position. Hyperigniter drops behind his teammate. Tarrier doesn't commit to the inside. Hyperigniter goes straight on. Completely locks up. He's going to take the escape road wiggle, as I affectionately call it. And I think there was a position gain from Leo, because he's passed Reflex and up to P7. So now it's... let's do it again, shall we? Now it's a 6-7 for the two Mercedes. That's a big finish for them and the constructors, you know. Big points for the two of those to gain on the Alpines and the Red Bulls. So let's see if they can make this work. And then you already know they're probably going to punt something and both go out. So let's see what happens. Leo already loses the position to Reflex. Reflex goes around the outside before the corner. So he gets that one done pretty cleanly. And he gets enough of... he throws it through Ascari. He's got enough of a exit speed to really gap Leo. As we'll get a gap interval just to make my life easier, and jump back to the front because Flame got the position off Albini. So into turn 1 it is now the other way around, as Ewan gets past Stepping Pig. So Ewan's making progress up the field while his teammate Leo seems to be doing the opposite. He's lost a position or two, I think, since we last spoke to him. I think it was just the position off Reflex, but either way Albini's dropped back to P2, but now Matt is only over a second back. So he's absolutely eaten all of his ERS. He's got no battery left. Albini's got all of it. Flame's got a pretty considerable amount of his, all over the exit of Lesmo too. All out of shape. That Alfa Romeo has absolutely drifted through there. Flood thinks he's in Tokyo. Albini around the outside. He had all the overspeed. Just had to get it stopped for Ascari, and he does so. But now he's got Flame all over the back of him, because Flame's managed to carry too much speed through. And he's going to get a monstrous slipstream heading into Parabolica. Is there a move into Parabolica? It could be the end of both of their races if it doesn't work. So instead, Flame decides to commit to staying behind him, and instead he's going to go for it when they get DRS down the straight. He's close enough, I'd assume. As Matt goes off, Matt Leclerc's it. Matt Leclerc'd it into the barrier. We'll run with you and see if we can see the remains of the McLaren off the track. I'm not entirely sure we will. It's a terrible camera angle. I just want to see the McLaren. But Matt's out from P3. And we have a VSC. Is that going to become a full safety car? We've had it a couple of times before. Are we going to have it again on lap 12? Make sure. Yeah, okay. You can. For a second there, I thought sound had gone, but as far as I'm concerned, sound's still there. Another handful of cars dive for pit row. That's mildly American, but it's fine. And that is, of course, to the benefit of Buster the Boss. He moves up a handful of positions, as does Hyperigniter. He's moved past his teammates. We're back to green flag running, so it was just a VSC, and it was a pretty brief one at that. Howard could be in trouble, because Hyperigniter's got pretty big overspeed. He's got the inside as well, so he could be looking for a move into the second chicane. Howard cuts him off at the apex. He gets it stopped. He gets the position still. Maintains P6, and now Hyperigniter's got to be careful because his teammate is lurking behind him, and we've seen them come together now twice, so things aren't necessarily all nice and dandy in that Alpine camp. But Howard getting all out of shape on the exit of Lesmo too. He loses both positions. Both Alpines get past him. To the inside goes Tarrier. Howard tries to stick it around the outside. He does so. That's exceptional stuff from Howard. I wasn't expecting to keep his footing on a hard tyre, but he's done so. And he's managed to at least stay within touching distance of Hyperigniter, and he's not lost that other position as well to the second Alpine. It means he's in a bit of a sandwich that isn't necessarily ideal, but it's better than losing both. And now he can maybe go again and try and get that position back, because he'll have DRS, and you've got a better run out of Parabolica by the looks of things. To the outside he goes. Is he going to get the position before the braking zone? I think he will, and there'll be no response from Hyperigniter. and it's back to P6 for Hood, and it's all pretty much down to the way that he responded to that mistake on the Exo Lesmo too. And meanwhile, Tarrier looks like he's going to get a position because Hyperigniter made another mistake on the exit of the first corner. So those Alpines are swapping positions left, right and centre, and Hyperigniter's the most recent car to drop to P8 as Tarrier is up to P7 and number 47, I think. Yeah, probably. Close enough. And either way, we'll jump to the front because it's Flame versus Albini, both on completely full battery. They're just going to coast through this race. But this is the thing, is that now Flame's going to bait the box call. That is the best you can do really when you've got no team radio. But instead Albini's going to move to the inside, gets ahead before the braking zone, and he's just going to command P1. Leon up to P3 is in a podium position from the back of the grid. I mean, props to him. It's an exceptional race so far, but we are only on lap 14. So things do change. Albini back to P2. Flame got him into the second chicane. We didn't quite get that on camera, but well, on stream. But Flame using a bit of the battery to get back ahead. I wonder if that's tactical because he's on the mediums as Albini also is. So it is very much a battle for position as opposed to on differing strategies. I think Lemon in 13th, he's 4 seconds off the back. Leo in 12th, we saw him, I think he was up in 7th at one point, and then I said that they were in a good position and he's fallen off. So I wonder who else I can jinx now. Ewan, I think didn't quite get with that jinx, but I'd have felt bad. I mean, he looks like is he a Man U fan? MUFC. No wonder I couldn't jinx him. The poor lad's had it bad enough. Alright. Nonetheless, the Alpine's back in P7 and P8. Decent enough position. It's still points. Flame boxes from P1. It puts Albini on his own. He's got clean air and medium tyres, which are probably coming into the end of their service life. So he's looking to probably box next lap. But Flame was the one who blinked first. He's looking for the undercut. But of course, there's not really an undercut because he already had the position. It's just a case of getting out and getting that outlap in fast enough to maintain his P1. Albini, I suppose, then attempting to overcut his rival. Reflex then Reflex end up ahead of, who is it? Leon pit. That'd be why then. For a second there, I did wonder why we'd lost someone who I thought was in P3. Instead, Reflex takes P3 in the second Alfa Romeo. He's got Ewan behind him. Of course, I mentioned not too long ago the number 8. And Heward's back to P5, so... And both Alpines are in P6 and P7 now. So, we've suddenly managed to cycle back to the exact same point where I said that the Alpines were in a good spot, except this time, one of them's got a penalty, and they're both stuck behind the same Red Bull. So maybe they're not quite in a good enough, that much of a good position. But I'd still back them to make a move, maybe if they can get close enough. Hyperigniter, he's got DRS down the street, he's not got a lot of VRS to work with, whereas Heward's got pretty much half the battery in hand. Tarrier's not got much to utilise either, as Albini boxes. So he's going to take those mediums 16 laps into this race and then ditch them for a set of hards, I would assume. Medium hard being the strategy that Flame also went for. So that was an interesting thing. He kind of glitched wide at Parabolica, but there we go. Flame got the position. That is the advantage you get for going early. He got that outlap on the fresh set of hard compound tyres. He had that extra performance that Albini didn't have on worn mediums, and it meant that Flames managed to build a gap. It's a 1.8 second gap, and Albini's still got to warm those hard tyres up. But come the end of the race, Flame's going to feel a little bit more pain because of course he has got that damage that he's still carrying from the lap 1 contact, and those hard tyres will be ever so slightly older than Albini's. So it's those fine margins that will come into play at the end of this race. But for now, it does look like Flame's got provisional or net P1 in hand so far. Albini's dropping back even further, trying to get those hard compounds into a good enough working temperature window. So currently, Reflex is in P1. It's not net P1, but it is P1 on the road. So There's at least a recognition for that. And Ewan is 5 tenths behind him, so it was 3 tenths before Ascari. He didn't necessarily get the exit he would have wanted through there, but if you can get a good enough run through Parabolica, and neither of them pit, which Reflex may well do since he's on the mediums, but I'd be surprised if he does. Instead it's Ewan who pits off the hard compound, so I assume probably on the hards off the bat for him to box off of them this early. But Flame gets the fast after this race, the hard compound clearly working for him, and Albini now 3.1 seconds back, so things not necessarily working in his favour, because his rival currently is starting to make big inroads on his teammate who's currently leader on the track. And with who was it who pit just then? Ewan pits and drops to 11th. So as much as I thought we'd all like unbunched ourselves up with 2 safety cars and then a VSC, but big contact around the field, I thought we kind of spread out a bit, but that is not the case, because a pit stop does drop you from 2nd to 11th. So this pit stop spread is about right for the whole field. Reflex, he takes one look at his teammate rocking up to the back of him and realises that this is not the fight he's in this race, and he just lets him glide straight through in that second sector. And now Flame is going to carve into the air going into Parabolica and give Punch Reflex a nice hole for him to get a good slipstream through, and he'll do the same down the straight. So Reflex doesn't pit off the mediums, and instead he's going to get that benefit of, is that DRS for him? It is indeed. And that's going to pull him further ahead of Ewan, who boxed early to try and undercut him. So when Reflex pits, you should expect that maybe he feels a benefit of doing that strategy with his teammate. Now, having said that, well, I haven't said that. I'd just get down to Ewan and realise Ewan isn't in DRS, but he's got clean air at least, so he's not got traffic to worry about, which of course can be a factor when Reflex gets out of the pits, maybe. And slightly ahead, I think Maxio Pro could be looking to line up a move. He's got Leon ahead of him. Leon defends the inside of the curving turn 3, but it becomes the outside for the chicane. He tries to swoop round. He pushes the Aston onto the curb and then absolutely tanks the second curb himself. The Aston has to cede the position and then maintains P9, but he's got to look behind him because Stepping Pig is all over the back of him. Could he look to the inside of Lesmo too? That would be ambitious. I think it's not going to happen at all. Instead he's going to sit behind him. DRS activated, ERS on. The overtake is indeed active for him. He's got Maxio Pro in his sights. To the inside he might go. Is there room for him? I don't think there is. And instead they both go into Ascari in the same positions they were, although the Aston really didn't get a very efficient line through there, and instead he's going to be looking behind him more than in front of him. He was on the attack just merely a couple of corners earlier, but now he's looking in his mirrors because Stepping Pig is on the charge. Well, he's got an opportunity now to take 9th position, get closer into the bigger points positions and try and bring some more home for Red Bull. He's got the DRS, he's getting closer and closer. He looks to the outside. There was a little bit of a jink to try and maybe catch out the Aston Martin, make him think about where he placed his car, but instead the Aston Martin doesn't defend and the Red Bull doesn't attack. So he is as you were for 9th and 10th as they head on to lap 19 of this race. And 5th and 6th stands the 2 Alpines, Hyperigniter and LTK Tarrier. So that's been a decent enough recovery for them at least. They've been running alongside each other, kind of train like 2x2. What am I trying to get at? You know, like passing each other and then punching the air, holding the air for each other and then passing each other, like slipstreaming each other to try and make inroads on Heward ahead of them. But Heward has been pretty solid, all things considered. He's managed to gap the two of them by 3.5 seconds as the 3-second penalties start to be handed out rather en masse, shall we say, as 8 seconds for Leon. I didn't even notice 8 seconds for Leon Molt, so he got 5 seconds when he pit, and that has really kind of undone his race because he was in a good position. He's got a couple of positions off of people boxing, and he's got Buster the Boss who's defending to the inside, but Leon has not got a lot to attack with. But the ERS he had was enough got it stopped, I think. Has he got that Haas in position? He's got position nicely. He's got power down. Gets good enough traction to take position off Buster the Boss. And now Maxia Pro could be looking at a position maybe off the same AlphaTauri, because Buster the Boss is starting to move backwards ever so slightly. Having said that, though, Leon's not managed to get away either, so this mid-pack is starting to battle quite intensely. And further back, I'm Lemon is not battling at all. He's terrible. Yeah, I dropped that character for a second just to slander him because he's my mate and he's trash. There goes Ewan to the outside. I think it was the outside. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was the outside of Maxia Pro. He got it, but then a big slide through Ascari. Massive slide. And that's meant that he's lost out the run that he might have had on Buster the Boss, and instead it's meant that he isn't in trouble because Maxia Pro's got a big he's got a big well, he had a big run on him, but that seemed to go in an instant. Hooard boxes from P5, I believe that was. Albini now 3.7 seconds off the back of Flame, so Flame has kept it cool, calm and collected. He's managed to build that gap that he needs on the hard compound, and it's been enough for him to now just control the flow of this race. Albini's not had anything to... Well, it doesn't seem like he's wanted really to fight back necessarily yet. He's got all the ERS if he wanted to properly push, but the middle of his hard stint, he just seems to be happy to keep it nice and steady. Tarrier, meanwhile, is the opposite. I think Hyper Ignited pit, because otherwise I'm not entirely sure how he lost that. He has indeed. He's on the soft compound now. Got Hooard in front of him, who also pit onto the softs, and Reflex ahead of them, who is on the hards now, having started on the mediums. So those hards to the end, I mean, it's not an optimal strategy, but it's the best they can muster. Ewan gets past Buster. Buster, 3 seconds penalty for him, stacks onto the other 3 second penalty he had. So he cut the corner at Ascari, but it's given him the run to get past Ewan before Parabolica, and it's meant that Ewan's got to do that overtake all over again. And this time, it might be even harder for him because Maxia Pro is only a 10th back and he's going to have a better run, and he's probably got more ERS as well. He has indeed. Ewan's got nothing in the tank. Single digits, nothing, 0. Maxia Pro to the outside. Is he ahead? They come together, contact in the wall. And they slide into turn 1. Aston Martin and the Mercedes come together. Somehow they're both still in this race. Neither of them have got a front wing. The Mercedes is backwards. I think they collected Buster as well at turn 1. Buster, the unlucky casualty in that collision. And we have a red flag. I've not done red flags before. It's good, some good stuff this. This has been some good stuff. I've not done a red flag before, so we had a Mercedes stopped on track because of big wing damage. We had 2 wings in the middle of the track, broken off cars. A Mercedes stopped on track because they had a broken wing and they were trying to get out of the gravel trap. Then we had Mercedes that retired on track from something else. I'm not entirely sure what that was. So it meant that Leo is now out. He retired to cause this red flag. So we have got a red flag. I can't see anything. I don't know if I'm meant to be able to see anything. I've not done a red flag before. So we're in the same boat, lads. Lads and lasses, we're in the same boat. As I make sure to save my voice so I don't, well, hydrate to try and save my voice. But here we go, 5 red lights and we've only got 12 runners. Somehow we're still going. It's been brilliant, to be fair. But into turn 1 we go. Flame gets the jump he needed on Albini, but Albini to the inside. He's got a better run through the later gears. He gets tagged from behind by Leon. It's all carnage. Albini's around. He gets pushed by the Aston. They've caused an absolute car park. Albini's gone from 2nd to 12th within the space of a corner. Leon up to P2. He's got 8 seconds of penalty, so that will come back to bite him. Tarrier tries to go around the outside. Further back, Hyper Igniter also trying to get a position. They're all jostling position there. Hyper Igniter to the inside. on the AlphaTauri bumping over the curves, busted the boss, he lost the position to Hyperignite, he's going to lose another, I think, to Maxia Pro, and then through the Lesmos, he's got Ewan behind him as well, so Ewan looking to pick up the pieces, and behind him as well, Stepping Pig, also there, with I'm the Lemon One, they're just lurking, waiting for some contact that they can pounce on. This mid-pack has been so tasty, but Huard gets the position off Reflex, so Reflex having made a mistake there. Albini with 15 seconds of penalties, something that is a massive shame for him because he just got tagged into turn 1, there's nothing he could do. Flame 2.4 seconds up the road, he's managed to nail that one down immediately. Leon trying to stay ahead of Tarrier, but it seems to be to no avail because Tarrier, they've all absolutely eaten their ERS. I don't know if ERS resets after red flags, I assume it probably does. But Leon's got nothing to defend. He goes to the inside, but Tarrier's not got a lot to attack either. He tries to switch back, but the Haas kind of parks on the apex. It's very well defended, but then distraction is just not really that optimal for him. Tarrier can't really do a lot to capitalise, but instead he's going to try and swoop round the outside. That will become the inside if he's got the speed to do so, but he can't commit. He just didn't have that top speed to get up the inside of the Haas, and instead he's back in P3 with his teammate in P4. Further back there's jostling for positions at the chicane. Ewan's up to P7. Stepping Pig and Huard are fighting together, the two Red Bulls. They've got Mercedes in front of them, but they've got to be wary of each other because the last thing they need is to take each other out. Reflex then behind them 3/10 back, and then the Lemon One managed to drop 2 seconds back off of them. He's shite. But it's XPG Flame who leads the way, and Leon's got 4/10 of a gap to the man trying to chase him down, and it's your championship leader Tarrier YT. He's got 3 seconds of penalties compared to Hyperignite's 6, so he's looking to take this position even if it doesn't get it on track. Huard gets a position off of Ewan further back into Parabolica, but then Huard goes really wide. That lets Ewan through. It might let Stepping Pig through because he's got a bit off his line, and it's meant to compromise his run, or has it, because he's managed to swoop in the inside of Ewan, and now maybe Stepping Pig could get the position as well, because we get a lovely aerial shot of Stepping Pig going up the inside. He's careful enough to not tag his teammate, and it's a simple enough move. Can he get the traction he needs to nail it down? I think he does, because the Mercedes can't fight back. He tried to, there was a look to the inside maybe, but that was shut off immediately. And then to the second chicane they go, he looks to the inside again, tries to get the Red Bull to defend, but the Red Bull's wise to it, and he just shuts the door and then moves back to their racing line to take the chicane exactly how he wants to. So Stepping Pig has orchestrated that nicely, and he's managed to follow his teammate through. They're 7th and 8th now, the two Red Bull cars, and 3rd and 4th of the two Alpines. Of course, as it stands, Maxia Pro will inherit that 4th position, given that he has less penalties than Hyperigniter. I think Huard's looking at getting quite a lot of positions as well, given his distinct lack of penalties. So penalties will be a very big factor, and that math isn't something that I'm really into doing right now. But Stepping Pig has got all out of shape somewhere because he's lost the position to Ewan, and now maybe Reflex could get involved. To the inside there, 3 wide into Parabolica. Reflex looked to go to the inside. Stepping Pig managed to get himself clear because for a second it looked like Reflex might stick his nose in and cause contact, but instead he's managed to keep himself out of danger, and now he's gone to the outside. He's got no ERS really to mount much of an attack, but Ewan's not got any either. And at turn 1 I think a bit of a car park as well, as Huard gets past Buster the Boss, and Stepping Pig gets a penalty, another penalty on top of that, so Reflex has got that position in the back. He doesn't have to get past, but of course he doesn't want to lose too much as we're on to the last lap. Huard gets past Hyperigniter on track. He's getting closer and closer to Maxia Pro in 4th, and of course Leon and Tarrier, so there could be the possibility of a podium for Huard, given that the penalty for Tarrier is a 3-second one, but he's a second back off Maxia Pro, who's 2.5 seconds back off of Leon, who's 4/10 give or take off Tarrier, so it could be marginal. It looks like it's around a second as it stands. Flame of course is going to run away to be your winner. I think that's pretty much a given as it stands, but Tarrier's in a bit of a pickle because he's got to keep it clean, otherwise he might find himself losing P2 on penalties. He's got no ERS to play with. Leon's got none either. Is there going to be a desperate move to the inside? Of course not. That would be a little bit a step too far. Maxia Pro is going to lose that 4th position because Huard's on a charge. He's got no penalties to his name, and further back there's penalties galore. So Reflex got 2 positions at Parabolica. Who gets P2, it was fractional. Tarrier drops to P4. So Max here Pro, after all that, manages to get that podium. I wasn't quite sure if he would, because Tarrier was... he had a decent enough gap, but your finishing orders, Reflex drops to 11th. There was contact at Parabolica that I didn't see. So it looked like he went up the inside of 2 drivers, and then something happened, because he dropped so far back. And he's teleported to the pit lane. Oh, we love this game sometimes. Love this game. Perfect game. I'll tell you what a round. Fair play, honestly. I thoroughly enjoyed that. So there we have it, the podium sequence. Here's a W, and it's a pretty dominant W for XPG Flame. A fair play to him, because that lap 1 contact with Matt Copper 97 looked like it had done him. It looked like he was going to crumble from there on, but instead he rose up, and yeah, fair play. Words cannot describe how surprised I am that he's managed to pull that one off. He put Albini in his place, given that the damage that he must have had from that contact, and then Albini got put backwards at turn 1, but glossing over that, that's your finishing order, the whole grid, including those who didn't even make it out of the first corner, didn't even complete a lap, the poor fella. Squire didn't get too far either. It was looking so promising for him, having started on pole position. Matt Copper 97 starting in second, of course, as well. Albini as well, big loser in that race. But front is where you've got to look, because it's XPG Flame who takes P1. Heward with a big comeback. He was down and out at one point as well, fighting in the lower reaches of the points, getting in a couple of bits of contact, but nothing bad enough that really hampered him. And Maxia Pro kind of went under the radar. He managed to nick that podium off of Tarrier. Leon dropping to 5th because of penalties, Hyperignite to 6th. So all in all, those are your points position. And the Lemon will manage to get 8th in the end, which, considering he didn't get many penalties. So after all, that red flag really did screw anyone who had a considerable amount of penalties. Lemon wasn't necessarily that man, and neither was Heward, of course. And they were the ones who gained considerable amounts at the checkered flag. Reflex was on. He had the opportunity to gain so much because he had no penalties, but in the end there was contact at the final corner, and that was the end of his race on the final corner of the final lap. Sometimes you just can't write it.